Because of why I search the deep through endless nights, no time to sleep. The call inside I can't deny. I'll find the light because of why.
Hey everyone, and welcome. All right, today we're taking a trip high up into the Pyrenees Mountains to look at a tiny country that has a massive reputation. We are talking about Andorra, and we're going to get to the bottom of a really big question. Is it actually a tax haven? I mean, have you ever pictured this? A place with amazing ski slopes and almost no taxes? Well, that's been the legend of Andorra for decades. But you know how legends are? They can be a little tricky. So in this breakdown, we're going to slice right through the myths and get to the real story. Okay, so to get a handle on the Andorra of today, we've actually got to jump into time machine and go back, because the reputation it has now was built on a system that looks totally different from what they have today. Let's check out what old school Andorra was all about. First things first, let's get on the same page. What even is a tax haven? You know, it's not just about paying less tax. The OECD, that's the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, they've got this checklist. It's a mix of three things. 1, you have no or super low taxes. 2, they fiercely protect your financial info. And 3, they just don't share information with other governments. And you know what? Back in the day, Andorra was like the poster child for that definition. I mean, for decades, there was no income tax, period. Their banking secrecy was the stuff of legends. It was basically a black box to the outside world. They didn't share info, and they absolutely marketed themselves as a safe place to stash your cash. Yeah, it pretty much checked every single one of those boxes. But, you know, a party like that can't last forever, right? The rest of the world started to catch on, and the global financial community began to shine a really bright spotlight on places just like Andorra. Suddenly, the heat was on, and it was coming from, well, everywhere. And wow, you can see on this timeline just how quickly the dominoes started to fall. It all kicked off with the 2008 financial crisis. Suddenly, every major country was hunting for lost tax money. A year later, the G20 puts Andorra on its gray list, basically calling them out in front of everyone. And then the EU laid down the law. Either you completely change your tax system or you get blacklisted, which would have been an economic disaster. So Andorra was at a crossroads. They could either get cut off from the entire global financial system, or they could change. And change they did. And we're not talking about a little touch-up here. This was a complete top-to-bottom reinvention. And honestly, the before and after is just stunning. Think about it. The old world of total bank secrecy and zero income tax, gone. And in its place, they built this whole new system based on automatically exchanging information and having a tax code that, yeah, is still low, but at least looks familiar to the rest of Europe. And look, to show the world they were serious and this wasn't just lip service, Andorra signed 24 of these things called tax information exchange agreements. That's a real concrete sign that they were all in on cooperation and leaving that secretive past in the rearview mirror. And this was really the moment the old era officially ended. In 2012, for the very first time, businesses in Andorra actually had to pay a corporate income tax. Then 2 years later, personal income tax arrived. Yep, the good old days of zero direct tax, they were officially history. Okay, so Andorra went through this massive transformation. It's not a no-tax country anymore, but that doesn't exactly make it a high-tax one either. So what's the deal today? Let's dive into the nuts and bolts of their current system. All right, let's start with the sales tax, what's called VAT. And whoa, this is pretty incredible. Andorra's rate is just 4.5%. Just look at its neighbors, France and Spain. They're hovering around 21%. It's not just low, it's the lowest standard rate in all of Europe. Now, what about the money you earn? The personal income tax here is so simple. Get this, the first 24,000 euros you make, you pay zero tax on that. Nothing. Then, on the next chunk, up to 40,000, it's just 5%. And even if you're a high earner, the absolute most you'll ever pay is a flat 10%. That's it. And for businesses, it's pretty much the same beautiful, simple story. The tax on their profits is a simple, flat 10%. No crazy complicated rules, just a straight up 10%, which is, you guessed it, one of the most competitive rates you're going to find anywhere in Europe. But here's the thing. The real magic isn't just about the low taxes they do have. It's about the major taxes they don't have. There's no tax on your overall wealth, no inheritance tax, no gift tax. And if you get paid dividends from a local company, that's tax-free too. I mean, these are huge taxes in most other countries that just aren't a thing here. They don't exist. Okay, so we've looked at the old Andorra, the secretive one, and we've looked at the new Andorra, the transparent one. It's time to circle back and answer that big question we kicked things off with. What's the final verdict?
So here it is. The official black and white answer is no. Andorra is not a tax haven. After all those reforms we talked about, the OECD took them off that naughty list all the way back in 2011. Officially, the case is closed.
And if you need more proof, the data doesn't lie. There's this thing called the Financial Secrecy Index. In 2020, Andorra ranked 123rd. That puts it way, way down the list. I mean, it's considered less secretive than places like the US, Switzerland, and the UK. Think about that for a second. You know, this quote from a former top official in Andorra really puts a fascinating spin on the whole thing. He's basically saying, hey, we never set out to be a tax haven. It was more like they were a tiny country that made enough money from shoppers buying stuff, so they just never got around to creating all those other taxes until the rest of the world kind of forced them to. And that really leaves us with a final fascinating question, doesn't it? If a country plays by all the international rules for transparency, but decides to keep its taxes really low and simple, is that a haven? Or is that just smart competitive policy? I'm really curious to hear your take on this. Let us know what you think down in the comments. And that's a wrap for this breakdown. Hey, if you enjoyed this and learned something new, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. Share it with someone who might find it interesting. And of course, subscribe so you don't miss our next one. Thanks so much for hanging out, and we'll catch you in the next one.